There we go. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Jenna Wood, and I am one of the dietitians here with the Giant Company, so Giant and Martins. If you're new to our classes, welcome. If you're returning, of course, welcome back. This is part of a two-part series where we're talking about protein and fiber and their role in weight management, which we're going to talk about weight management, what we mean by that, but then kind of dive into protein specifically, a little bit about fiber, and then some recipe product inspiration as well. But let us get into it. So, for our agenda, we're going to touch on what weight management is, the role of protein in that, the role of fiber, and I just said this, so, and the product recipe inspiration. Additionally, so part two of this, Joni, I believe next week, will be making a recipe that is high fiber, high protein. So I'll make sure to remind you to sign up for that one as well. All right, let's touch about what is weight management? What do we really mean by that? Now, weight management doesn't necessarily mean you are actively losing weight because maybe you don't want to, maybe you don't need to. But weight management, and there's a lot of different words to describe this, but it can mean weight loss actively. It can mean weight gain. And because there are positive reasons to gain weights, some people do have to gain weight. And it could just be weight maintenance. Maybe you're very happy with the weight you have right now. Your labs are all really great, status quo. And honestly, that's a big goal for a lot of people is to just maintain. So management can be any of these areas. And for a lot of us, the weight management piece might just be second nature or something we're not even really thinking about, but it kind of encompasses all of these different aspects. Now, why is weight management important? Now, weight in and of itself isn't the only factor that relates to other health conditions. You can be a perfectly quote unquote normal weight and still have various health conditions. And there are plenty of people who are overweight and have no health conditions. So your actual weight is only one thing. But what we have found through research and just seeing populations, the higher our weight, the more we're likely to have certain risks for different health conditions, whether it be type 2 diabetes, certain types of heart disease, certain types of cancers. Again, it's not the only thing that can lead to these things, but a lot of times there is at least a correlation between higher weights and some of these health conditions. So for a lot of people, even losing a small portion, like 5% of their current weight, is enough to show some really positive health effects, which can include just overall well-being, how you feel, which is a big part of this as well. Again, if you feel your best, both mentally and physically, at whatever weight you are, then that's great. Your energy levels for a lot of people, being at a more stable, beneficial weight might help with energy levels. But again, that's not the only piece of the puzzle. Maybe you're being more physically active. Maybe you are getting better sleep. Maybe the foods you're eating are contributing to better energy levels. So again, it's all related. Again, your sleep, your mental health, for joint function. So in theory, the more weight we have and that's pressing on our joints, the more likely, to have issues with this. But again, that also relates to things we're eating and the physical activity. And then longevity as well, which we're talking about a lot this month. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, I hit page up instead of, oh, goodness. My apologies. I hit page down. Let me go back. Goodness, let me stop sharing for a second. It's always something, right? Technology. Don't hit page down. That jumps you way farther than you want to go. Okay, here we go. Screen two. This was my actual next slide. Okay, I believe. Yeah, so longevity. So nutrients to manage and fuel weight management, which again, weight loss, weight gain, and just maintenance, staying at the weight you currently are. So we're going to talk about protein, we're going to talk about fiber, and really the beneficial piece comes from consuming both. Because a lot of times in the media, on social media, there's a lot about protein. There's protein in everything. Like protein has been added to every food product you can think of. And certainly protein is really important. but we often overlook the fiber aspect. And a lot of times people, especially people who don't know a lot about nutrition out there on social media, they'll say things like fiber's not essential. Technically, that is true, but just because something is not essential, like you can live the rest of your life without eating fiber, I highly do not encourage it because a lot of the health benefits we're going to talk about today. All right, so we're going to start with protein. So, what is protein's role when it comes to weight management? So, it can do a two-part thing with increasing our satiety while also improving our fullness factor. And fullness and satiety or satiation, you can hear a lot of different names. They're technically not the same thing. So, first, eating protein at any given meal will help you be full at that moment. So, protein is very filling at that moment. But eating a protein-rich food, it takes a little bit to digest and break down. So it actually keeps you fuller for longer after your meal. So you're full in the moment and you stay fuller for longer, as opposed to meals that don't have any protein. It can help you prevent overeating and grazing and kind of, if you're somebody who likes to pick on foods, or maybe you don't like it, it's just what you do. You pick on foods throughout the day. Having high quality protein at every meal and snack or most meals and snacks can really help curb that. It's not going to prevent it for everybody because there's other things that can go into overeating. However, for a lot of us, especially at breakfast, and actually, I do have polls. I always forget to do my polls, but I do have a poll here. So I'm going to launch it as I'm talking about these. But do you think you're eating enough protein even? And so, especially when you're eating enough protein at breakfast, you're going to, in theory, kind of set the tone for the rest of your day. Eating protein, especially early in the morning, can really help with our blood sugar management. So, there's a lot of reasons to be eating enough protein at our meals. So I'm going to stop the poll really quickly. So we have quite a split. So we have about 40-40 are yes and no that they're eating enough protein, but a good bit, so 18% say they're not sure, which I'm not shocked because there's a lot of confusing information out there. And I guess, you know what, I'll launch this one too because this is kind of relevant to what we're talking about right now. Oops, stop sharing this one. Uh, let's see. Which meal lacks protein for you most? I know I worded that kind of funky, but when you're eating your different meals, and we'll talk about what has protein in a second, but when you're eating your meals, which meal do you feel just isn't high protein enough? I'll say for most of us, we eat enough protein at dinner. We typically have like, a piece of fish, a piece of chicken, whatever it happens to be. Lunch for a lot of people has enough protein if you're eating a sandwich, or maybe you have leftovers that have some protein. But here, this is kind of what I expected to see. Most people feel that they're lacking protein at breakfast and at snacks, and 100%. So when I used to do more counseling and we were talking with people who, about their diet, they weren't getting a lot of protein at breakfast because they were either eating like a bagel or they were eating cereal, which there's nothing wrong with those foods, especially depending on the type. They just often don't have a lot of protein in and of themselves. So it depends on what you're pairing. Great. Love to see it. Okay. Well, I'd love to see it, but that's why we're talking about it. So, protein can also help sustain energy from the food you consume. So, again, we talked about having more energy throughout the day. Um, so, protein is super important. I will also say protein is really important for muscle. So, when we talk about weight management, weight loss especially, yes, we're going to lose weight, but we want to do it in the most sustainable way possible, meaning we want to lose fat mass. We don't want to lose a significant amount of muscle mass. We don't want to lose muscle. That's really dangerous for so many reasons. All weight loss will come with a little muscle loss. It's just part of the game. However, we want to maintain as much of that lean muscle as possible. How do we do that? Strength training, but also making sure we're eating adequate protein in that time of weight loss and really for most of our lives. So, protein's role, again, muscle maintenance, it can help maintain that lean muscle. And when you're being physically active, especially, strength training and different types of things, it helps rebuild that muscle that you're breaking down during that physical activity. Now, if you're not getting enough protein, especially while you're losing weight, you may start to feel a little bit of weakness. You may have some muscle loss, and you might even see it a little bit depending. You may have differences, like you may notice your hair is not as nice as it was, your skin, your nails. All of these different pieces of our body rely on protein too. And if we're exercising a lot and we're not eating enough protein, those little extraneous things, our body's like, okay, I don't have to have beautiful, shiny hair, but I need to maintain my muscles. So we'll kind of lose out on some of those other things. And this doesn't happen right away. This can take months, year. So making sure we're eating adequate protein is so crucial. Now, we get protein from various foods, and the typical categories we break them into are animal and plant-based sources of protein. So, what's really great about this is depending on what you eat, whether you're a vegetarian, an omnivore, it doesn't matter. You're going to be able to get protein from different sources. If you are somebody who eats animal proteins, we still recommend eating plant-based sources of protein as well, and we'll touch on why. But where are we getting the protein? So, what are examples of protein rich foods? So, when it comes to animal proteins, you're going to get protein from the places you would often think. So, mussels, typically. So, things like beef and poultry. So, poultry being chicken, turkey, those types of things, but also other birds. Pork, seafood, so fish and shellfish, eggs. And a lot of times people will see egg whites. Now, egg whites definitely have protein, but the egg yolk has just as much protein too. But a lot of times when people are looking to lose weight, they're thinking about calories, and the egg yolk is going to be more calorie dense, but it is still super nutritious. So we get protein from both parts. Protein powder, which we're going to kind of touch on throughout. As dietitians, we recommend whole foods as much as possible, but for some of us, it might not be enough. And maybe you struggle to eat protein, like we said at breakfast, and for you, you don't want to eat eggs every day, or you're not a big meat eater. Maybe a protein powder can supplement, which is what it's supposed to do. It is a supplement. And animal-based options are whey, which is going to be the most digestible and bioavailable, meaning our body absorbs it best. Casein, which is another protein found in dairy, and also egg white protein is another one you'll see. And then, of course, dairy products, so things like cheese and milk and yogurts, are all going to be animal-based sources of protein. Now, when it comes to the protein debate, yes, animal sources of protein are going to be more bioavailable, which I just mentioned, and they have all of the essential amino acids we need. So our body can produce and make some of its own amino acids, which are the building blocks of protein, but there are some that we have to get through food, meaning they're essential. We can get all of them from animal-based foods. And there are some like leucine, which are super important for muscle growth and development. We can also get them from plants too. It's just a little trickier. So certainly if you do eat animal products, you will likely be getting enough protein, but making sure we're spreading it throughout the day. Getting that protein at breakfast is really key. Now, again, plant-based. There are still so many plant-based options as well. So our beans and legumes, things like lentils as well, edamame, so like little soybeans. I love edamame. Nut and nut butters. Now, online again. So whether it be, nut butters like almond butter or peanut butter, which is actually a legume as well, is it the highest source of protein? No. And per calorie, it's kind of low in protein, but it does still have protein. So it's still a protein source. But compared to some other things, you're not getting as much protein per calorie compared to some of the others. Seeds, so things like pumpkin and sunflower and flax and chia, all of these will have protein. Soy milk, tofu, tempeh, so all the products made from soy, oats, and other whole grains, things like quinoa. So another reason we recommend whole grains is because all of those parts in the grain are intact, and that's where a lot of the protein is too. And then again, protein powders as well. So if you are a vegetarian or vegan or looking for plant-based options, a lot of them are made with soy or pea or hemp or rice. Now, with this, we did just mention with all the animal-based sources being complete proteins, they have all the essential amino acids. Plant-based proteins typically do not. There are some that do. Chia, soy, and quinoa, I believe, do have all of the essential. Some of the others will be lacking. Like it might not have enough tryptophan or methionine or whatever it is. That's why we want to make sure we're eating a variety of these types of protein foods, especially if they're plant-based, throughout the day. We used to think that you had to eat complementary foods. So you had to eat beans and rice at the same time because they had different limiting amino acids, meaning they weren't complete in different ways. And just culturally, we tend to do that because those foods go so well together. But you actually do not need to consume those amino acids together. Our bodies are really smart and well designed, and we can take those amino acids and pull them together so you're getting enough protein. And one of the best parts about plant-based proteins is they also have fiber, which is our next talking point. So truly, if you have vegans, vegetarians in your lives, or maybe you are, there you can certainly get enough protein for sure. It's a little trickier than for people who eat animal foods, but it's not impossible by any stretch. So lots of great options here. So how much? This is always the biggest question. Well, how much protein do I need? Like every other dietitian answer, it's often it depends. And it really does because protein needs are typically calculated on your body weight. And if you're looking to lose weight, your body weight's going to go down and your protein needs might vary. It also has to do with your activity level, your health conditions, your life stage. So actually, as we get older, so older adults, over 65 typically, we actually need a little bit more protein to make sure we're maintaining that lean muscle mass as we age. Super important because guess what? We need our muscles to do everything. Now, the current recommendations for adults typically fall between zero point 0.8 to 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. I have that here. And of course, you will get the slides later. So how do you calculate that? You take your weight in pounds, you divide that by 2.2. So that's how you get your weight in kilograms. And then you multiply it by one of those numbers. Now, zero point 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight is what we consider the bare minimum. So that's the amount of protein you want to survive, to avoid deficiencies. We typically need more than that, especially if you are physically active, you're moving your body a lot, you're trying to lose weight. Zero point 0.8 is often not going to be enough for a lot of people. So kind of going closer to that 1.2, especially if you're getting in some activity and if you're a little bit older. So again, this is general recommendations. Typically, we recommend speaking one-on-one with a dietitian to kind of see what your actual needs are. Because things, if you're undergoing cancer treatment, if you have diabetes, if you are on dialysis, people who are pregnant or postpartum, like there's so many things that can change how much protein you need. So it's not a one size fits all answer. Most Americans are getting enough protein for sure, especially those who eat animal proteins. However, like I've kind of stressed, we don't often spread it out well throughout the day. And that tends to be my recommendation is make sure you're starting the day with some good protein. Make sure you're getting it at each of your big meals. If you're eating a snack, you're not just eating something kind of carby, you're eating some protein with that too. So thinking through your life and what you're eating, see where you're getting your protein. And where do you see it on the nutrition facts label? So here it's right at the bottom of all of the nutrients here. So this is our granola bars, our protein granola bars. They have 10 grams of protein per bar, which you can see here. So protein is always going to be listed on the nutrition facts label. And the reason you don't see a percent daily value, which you see on the right-hand side, is because protein needs vary so drastically. So there's no way to calculate like everybody, like this 10 grams will be whatever percentage for you. It just doesn't work that way. My protein picks, I have a couple here because truly, again, I do eat some animal proteins. However, I eat a lot of plant-based products as well. So I kind of wanted to give a variety. I really love, and a lot of people on our team love the Chobani protein drinks. So they're a yogurt-based drink. Like if you're not super into drinking other protein drinks, this can be a really great option, especially if you do dairy. They're lactose free and they have different quantities of protein. They have a 15 gram, a 20 gram, and a 30 gram. So depending on what your protein needs are or your goals, like this could be a super easy way to get protein in at breakfast or at a snack. Hemp hearts, I love hemp hearts. Again, a seed. They have 9 grams of protein per 3 tablespoons. So you're probably not eating 3 tablespoons in a serving, but even 3 grams added to your day. Let's say you put this on top of your oatmeal, which is going to have a little too. You're adding at every meal. Salmon, I love salmon. So fish, of course, will be a good source of protein. So 5 ounces raw, cooks a little bit down, has almost 30 grams of protein. Our protein bars, as we mentioned, have 10 grams. Cottage cheese. So you've probably seen if you're ever on social media, cottage cheese has really come into its own. It has 16 grams of protein per half a cup. So if you're not a big yogurt person and you like cottage cheese, that's a good option. And I don't like cottage cheese. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I do add it to eggs and other things, savory foods. But I really like our brand, the no salt added, because most cottage cheeses super high in salt. Our no salt added, 45 milligrams per half a cup, which is incredible. It doesn't taste salty if you're used to that flavor. But let's say you're making one of these social media recipes, you want to pick this one because you don't need all that added salt. Ground turkey. So this is ground turkey breast. We also have just ground turkey, which is a little higher in fat, very similar amount of protein, but for 4 raw ounces, it's 26 grams of protein. I love tofu. I try to get everyone to love tofu, but I really love it for a fifth of that block. So this is the Nasoya. It's like super firm and it already has the water pressed out, which is really great if you're new to tofu and you don't want to have to press it yourself. It has 14 grams of protein per a fifth of that block. And then I've been really into our chicken sausages lately, and one of the links has 16 grams of protein and half the calories of like a pork sausage and significantly less fat as well. So just some of the ones that are regulars in my diet. So I kind of just wanted to show you my picks. All right, we're going to shift gears and talk about fiber. So fiber's role, kind of similar in some of the ways. So again, it helps with that fullness factor and the satiety. So we want that two-part whammy of it's going to keep us full for longer and it's full in the moment as well. Blood sugar management, so you're not getting these peaks and valleys as much, which can really help with cravings and how you feel long term. Cholesterol reduction, which is not necessarily weight management related, but for some people, they're looking to lose weight, possibly to help with their cholesterol, and fiber is really going to have a big role there. And it can lower the risk of certain health conditions, different types of cancers, things like that. Fiber sources. We get fiber in a lot of foods, and I do have one more poll. I won't forget to do it. Let me go back. So, do you think you're eating enough fiber? We get fiber from plant foods. So, people who tell you you don't need to eat plants, it's a little silly because that's the only place we get fiber. Fruits, especially fruits with the skin. So, like you're eating an apple, eat the skin. And berries, especially. So, I'm going to end this poll and share the results. So about 39% of people think they are getting enough fiber, 48% said no, and 12% are unsure. Honestly, I expected this. I'm going to tell you, you're probably not, unless you're being super careful, and I'll say why on the next slide. But yeah, fruits, berries, and avocados, so technically a fruit, are slept on. We think about them being high in fat, which they are high in healthy fats, but they also are really fibrous and they're my favorite food for sure. Different types of vegetables. No, not all vegetables will be super high in fiber, but a lot of them are. And we recommend eating a medley anyway. So things like potatoes have fiber, carrots, different things like that. The more cruciferous vegetables, things like broccoli and Brussels sprouts. Again, not the highest fiber source, but they do pack a punch. whole grains. So, like we said with the protein, we're also getting fiber, of course, from whole grains. So, things like the quinoa and the corn, like popcorn, brown rices, whole wheat pastas, whole wheat breads, beans, legumes, lentils. So, again, you probably are seeing a lot of copy paste almost of the plant-based protein foods and ones that have fiber. Again, they pack that protein fiber punch, nuts and seeds, and so things like the chia and the flax. So lots of foods have fiber, but it can be tricky to make sure you're getting enough throughout the day. And what is enough? Well, it depends. So, for most adults, we recommend between 25 and 38 grams of fiber per day. So, women on the lower side, men or bigger people on the higher side. There's another calculation. So, if you know what your calorie needs are for the day, they also estimate that for every 1,000 calories, we recommend about 14 grams of fiber. But truly, I wouldn't want to fall kind of below that 25 grams. Most Americans do, though. I think the current statistic is most Americans are consuming about 14 grams, 14 to 15 grams of fiber per day. So we're severely under what we should be eating. Now, there are ways to kind of make sure you're eating enough fiber. One, if you're looking at a serving of something that has fiber, so a plant-based food of some sort, you want to look for something that often has at least 3 grams of fiber per serving. So, like a slice of bread, you'll want to look for 3 grams of fiber because that's going to be a good fiber source for you. Now, if you're not eating enough fiber right now, and we talk about this a lot in our classes, you don't want to go from eating 14 grams of fiber today to eating 30 or more tomorrow. You're going to be very uncomfortable. And it's just not the best for your digestion or anything. You want to go slow. Maybe add something that has that 3 grams to your day for a couple days and then start slowly adding from there. You do not want to start really quickly with a lot of it because, again, it can cause gas, bloating, cramping. It could also cause diarrhea or constipation, like lots of things that can happen. Additionally, the more fiber you're eating, the more water and fluids you want to consume to help with the constipation and all of that as well. And movement. You want to move your body, move that digestive system to help things going as well. So, lots of benefits to eating fiber, but it can be dangerous to pack on a lot without thinking of the whole picture. Where is fiber on the label? Right under carbohydrate because fiber is a type of carbohydrate. So again, we're only finding fiber in carb-rich foods, which are often plants. There are a lot of different types of fibers. The two most common we think about being soluble and insoluble. Soluble tends to be the kind that we think about with fiber. It causes bulk and helps you go to the bathroom. However, for the cholesterol management, the weight management, so keeping you feeling full and satisfied, it's actually the soluble fiber that does that because water is attracted to it. So it kind of creates a gel and that slows down digestion and keeps you feeling satisfied. A lot of foods don't list out soluble and insoluble fiber, so I would just recommend eating a diet that has a lot of those fiber-rich foods we talked about, and you're going to get a medley of them because every food for the most part that has fiber has a little bit of both insoluble and soluble, give or take. Some of my fiber picks now, I love fiber, so but I could have talked just about fiber for an hour. So some of my favorites include raspberries. So raspberries, I eat them just about every day. They are packed with fiber, whether it be fresh or frozen. Our frozen bag, it says a cup has 6 grams of fiber. A cup of fresh often has like 8. I think it might just have to do with the variety of berry, but 6 to 8 grams of fiber. You add this to your oatmeal in the morning that already has fiber, maybe your yogurt that has protein. You got a nice punch of fiber. Chia seeds, I talk about chia a lot. Somebody in the chat just said they tried that chia pudding I made. I make chia pudding all the time. 3 tablespoons has 10 grams, which again, if you're not used to eating, can be a lot at one serving. So making sure you're slowly adding that in. Oats, so I eat oatmeal many days. Half a cup has 4 grams, and there's other types of oats that have more. With this, I will say, so you want to aim for like the old fashioned or the steel cut oats. They're less processed. The fiber's not broken down as much, so it keeps you fuller longer. I know we're at the 30-minute mark. I still have a little bit to talk about, but if you have to run, I understand. Chickpeas, so beans in general have a lot of fiber, so half a cup has 7 grams. And we talked about Olipop and some of these other probiotic, prebiotic, so prebiotic fibers. 1 can of Olipop has 9 grams. Now, as I've kind of alluded to, protein and fiber are a wonderful pairing together, and we want to try to combine both at any given meal and snack. Not every meal is going to be perfect, but aiming to have both of these at a meal, especially if weight management is it a goal of yours, this is really going to be helpful for you. Snack examples when it comes to pairing protein and fiber. I've kind of touched on some of these. Berries with Greek yogurt, tuna, avocado, or guacamole with whole wheat crackers, cherry tomatoes and cottage cheese, or berries and whatever you like with your cottage cheese, grapes and walnuts or edamame. So grapes will have a tiny bit of fiber, walnuts will have some fiber and some protein, same with the edamame. And then, peppers or carrots with hard-boiled eggs, which will have some protein. So a really nice pairing. There's a million other examples too. Some easy swaps. So again, there's more. These are just three I came up with on the top of my head. But we're not looking to overhaul your diet. We're looking to make simple swaps of something you're currently doing and just something you could do that's a little easy to boost the fiber or protein. The first example, I love this. So a regular white pasta still has fiber and protein. So a regular Barilla or our brand will have 3 grams of fiber per serving and 7 grams of protein. Again, nothing to like turn your nose up at. But the Barilla Protein Plus has 5 grams of fiber per serving and 10 grams of protein. So if you're really looking for just little ways to kind of slowly add it in, this can be a great option. And I love the rigatoni. Our yogurt. So plain yogurt has about 8 grams of protein per 3/4 of a cup. Greek yogurt, so we strain out more of that liquid part, it's thicker. It has double the protein. So Greek yogurt has 16 grams of protein for the same serving. And there's different varieties, different brands have different flavors, but truly, if you're looking to boost your protein, Greek yogurt can be a great way to do that. And then there's nothing against our pretzels, but a lot of snacky foods are very low in fiber. Popcorn is overlooked in the fiber world, I think, and I love popcorn, but 1 gram of fiber for a serving of the pretzels, same size serving, you're going to get 4 grams of fiber for the popcorn, and it's going to keep you fuller longer. The volume is so much, like it's a lot of popcorn, so you'll just be more satisfied as well. All right, we're going to kind of skim through this because Joni next week is going to talk more about recipes, but I did just want to kind of showcase this picture and I included the link to our website, How to Balance Your Plate. And if you're eating a balanced plate with a quarter protein, quarter starchy fiber foods, and half of your plate being non-starchy veggies, you're gonna hit that protein fiber goals just naturally. So it doesn't have to be this really complicated mess. Just trying to think through like, does my plate have some protein? The example foods I listed, does it have a good serving of vegetables and a good serving of a like whole grain or high fiber starchy food? Some of my favorite recipes, again, I'm not going to read through all of this, but this is one of my favorites for fiber and protein. It's a big batch tomato lentil stew, 16 grams of fiber, crazy. It's so delicious. And 24 grams of protein. This is a vegan recipe. So again, I don't want to hear people tell vegans that they can't get protein and fiber. Well, they can get fiber, but definitely easy. If you're not a vegan or vegetarian, you could still add more protein to this as well. Taco skillet with beef and cauliflower rice, great source of fiber and protein as well. And then a breakfast option. So I had the chia pudding I talked about last week. This is a blueberry chia overnight oats, also really high fiber protein. So just lots of different ways to get all that in. Alrighty, I'm going to wrap up and get to our questions today, but what's up next? So tomorrow, join me. I'll be talking behind the brand about blue zones, which we've been chatting about a lot this month. Monday, we have flyer to fork, so we'll be making a recipe. Tuesday next week, Joni will be talking. So I think the last of our Power Sips classes, she'll be talking about tea. And then next Wednesday, as I mentioned, Joni will have the Living Well class where she's going to make a protein and fiber rich meal. So more inspiration about all of that. But that is all I have today for our fiber and protein for weight management. I really appreciate you joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks and take care.